Thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate entrepreneurship at its best, which is nothing other than Babson entrepreneurship. And we're delighted that Deb DeSantis, class of '85, who was inducted into our Alumni Entrepreneur Hall of Fame last year, is with us tonight. Deb, will you please stand? She's also begun her term as a Babson trustee today. So we're delighted to have her join the Board of Trustees as well. So to start off, I want to congratulate Mir Ibrahim and Steve Spinelli as the newest members of the Alumni Entrepreneur Hall of Fame. We're thrilled to be here tonight to honor both of them, not only because of their extraordinary accomplishments, but also because these accomplishments speak to the unique value of a Babson education. There's no question that we prepare entrepreneurs to launch and grow startups differently and better, I would argue, than any other school in the world. And what is increasingly recognized, and what everybody in this room already knows, is that we are committed to preparing entrepreneurs to succeed in any context. We are the only educator for entrepreneurs of all kinds. Those of you that have been around here all day have only heard that at least 27 times. But for those of you that are here tonight, remember, we are the only educator for entrepreneurship of all kinds. And the entrepreneurs that we educate create not only wealth, but also a wealth of opportunities for others. In startups, in family businesses, in social innovation ventures, in large corporations, and many, many other settings. Babson has had and continues to have much more impact on the world than most small colleges can ever aspire to have. The Babson alumni we're honoring tonight are terrific examples of entrepreneurial leaders who have achieved tremendous impact in very, very different contexts. They personify what can be achieved with an entrepreneurial mindset and with passion for their goals. At age 24, okay, those of you that think you're rising stars here, remember this was at age 24, Steve Spinelli co-founded Jiffy Lube, helping to pioneer the quick lube industry and franchise it nationwide. There are few more important creations than Jiffy Lube for someone like me who is automotive mechanic disinclined. And later he had a profound influence on entrepreneurship education. And now, at the helm of Philadelphia University, he's the driving force in creating an entirely new model for professional higher education. With a few Jiffy Lube franchises under his belt, Steve began Babson's evening MBA program in 1984. He commuted from Springfield to campus one night a week, and over the 7 years he was in the program, 7 years he was in the program, the internet got invented. I mean, all sorts of things happened. Right? He came with a pencil, he left with the internet. He was busy setting up Jiffy Lube locations all over New England. And success in the business world was immensely easier than success in Professor Bill Bygrave's class. Bill Bygrave, can you believe this? For those of you who think that Babson is the home of an easy A, Bill Bygrave gave Steve Spinelli a B+. And he said he thought it was probably one of the few courses at Babson where Steve didn't get an A. But entrepreneurship gurus must be tough graders, because as a student of the late Jeff Timmons in Northeastern's executive MBA program at the time, Bill himself received a B+. So there's a trend here where people are working out their issues in the grading. After achieving great success in business and with an MBA in hand, Steve began to pursue a career in academia. He earned a PhD in economics from Imperial College at the University of London, and soon after he joined the Babson faculty. Let's fast forward to 1999 when Steve became director of the Blank Center. His vision was to innovate to improve the student learning experience, to prepare better entrepreneurs, and drive entrepreneurship activity worldwide. Under his leadership, the department became a division which he chaired, talented young faculty were hired, and Babson's academic reputation grew. Innovations like the MBA Entrepreneurship Intensity Track, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, the successful transgenerational entrepreneurship practices, and the Symposium for Entrepreneurship Educator programs are what they are today, largely because of the efforts of Steve Spinelli. And as Vice Provost at Babson, he continued to take entrepreneurship to a new level. He was a very popular and highly regarded teacher, as well as a strong mentor to student businesses. In fact, Paragon Lake, which became Gemvara, whose founder, Matt Lazan, was honored as a rising star at last year's dinner, was incubated on the sofa outside Steve's office, where Matt and his co-founder, Jason Rubin, would sit there with their cell phones and laptops and grab Steve as he walked by each hour to ask him a question or two. Steve also had a unique ability to relate to students from a working-class background, a background that he knew well growing up in Springfield's South End. That was a strong Italian working-class neighborhood, and Steve was the first in his family to get a college degree. His mother in particular was very proud of that, but when he started Jiffy Lube, she reportedly was heartbroken that her educated son was changing oil. Now, I've been saying nothing but wonderful things about Steve Spinelli. There are some things about Steve Spinelli that aren't so wonderful. And it's very clear that for those of you that don't know him, you have to hear it here tonight. He is a proud Yankees fan. Now, it's not like anything we have to be proud of. Even entrepreneurship gurus aren't perfect. Steve, we're delighted to have you here tonight. Now on to Mir Ibrahim. Mir is the co-founder and CEO of Jio TV Network, Pakistan's first independent, non-government TV network, and now its largest and most popular media brand. It's affiliated with a leading newspaper chain founded by Mir's grandfather. After graduating from Babson, Mir first worked at Goldman Sachs on Wall Street and could have stayed there and had a wonderful career. But in 2002, he made a decision to return to Pakistan and make a difference with the launch of Jio. Mir's story is all about using entrepreneurial leadership for social change. Through Jio's reporting and his personal efforts to lead change, he's had an enormous impact in Pakistan on literacy, disaster relief, women's rights, and constitutional processes. He was the first news station to put women on the news desks as anchors, and the first to use satellites to beam real-time, on-the-spot reporting. And he was the first to implement a simple but powerful idea to change the culture, like Bring Your Daughter to Work Day at Jio. He started Jio Films. And with one of its first films about women and minority rights, he broke Pakistan's box office record and broadened the national dialogue over these very important issues. He and his media team also played a courageous role, putting principle before profit in preserving the independence of Pakistan's judiciary during the country's 2007 constitutional crisis. And Mir and his team have worked with the Times of India on a media campaign called Love India, Love Pakistan, to bring peace between the two countries. One of Mir's Babson professors, James Hoops, the Murata Professor of Ethics and Business, teaches a course on moral leadership in countries and in companies. Jim is in the early stages of writing a case study on Mir, which will be part of a book he's writing on ethics and leadership in Asia. Jim says, quote, "Mir's company has succeeded better than any other I knew, perhaps better than any company in the world in integrating corporate social responsibility into its core vision. In his case study, Jim will describe how Mir managed the campaign against the Hudud rape ordinance. According to this law, a woman who charged a man with rape had to have 4 male witnesses or else she could be jailed. Mir found there was no support for it in the Quran, made it an Islamic issue, won support from the clergy, and created a popular national movement. By skillful presentation of the issue so as to respect the Pakistani people and their values, Geo succeeded where human rights groups had failed. The rape ordinance was amended in 2006, and immediately 2,000 women were freed from prison. I've already mentioned that Mir's late grandfather founded a prominent newspaper chain, which has been successfully expanded under Mir's father. All 3 men acted on their conviction that the media must play a strong role in building a democratic society. Now, Mir and his wife Sheena have a daughter who's almost 1 year old. It's probably a little too early to tell if she's going into the media business. I would assume there are no hints yet. But undoubtedly, she will continue in a family tradition of making wherever they live and wherever they work a better place. Both Mir and Steve are hugely terrific role models for our students, showing them that it doesn't matter where you come from, you can drive change that will make a difference for education, for business, and for society. Now, at our reception, you also saw displays from another group of alumni entrepreneurs who are also doing Babson proud. We call them our rising stars. They founded or co-founded businesses which are less than 10 years old. They've received outside funding but are not publicly held, and their products or services are generating great buzz. Please stand when I call your name. Richard Bottner, class of '07. Richard founded InternBridge, a premier internship management resource firm. It's well known nationally, highly valued by colleges and employers alike as the leading expert in all things involving internships. In 2008, Richard was one of Bloomberg Businessweek's top 25 U.S. entrepreneurs under the age of 25. Jill Cartwright, Masters '07. Jill. Jill founded Go Gaga, whose products are ergonomic, stylish, and eco-friendly tote bags. Her first line was diaper bags, and her collection has since expanded to a variety of totes for multiple needs. These are all sold in stores nationally, internationally, and on 50 websites. Seth Ginsburg, class of '03. Seth founded creakyjoints.com. I can appreciate this. A nonprofit which uses grassroots outreach activities to teach patients how to live with chronic disease. It has received grants from many of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, and his online advocacy groups to date have close to 100,000 members. Jason Jacobs, class of '05 Masters. Jason founded Runkeeper, a mobile fitness platform for runners that helps track, measure, and improve fitness. It is considered a runner's dream, and I have accepted that based on the evidence provided to me by runners, no personal experience. He was recently named one of the top 12 tech hub hotspots by Boston Globe Innovation Editor. Christine Mosholder, class of '03. Obviously brought your own posse, eh? She founded the Furniture Trust, a nonprofit that connects local businesses with groups, including nonprofits and schools that need furniture. Excess office furniture is productively reused instead of adding to the spiraling amount of waste going to landfills. Antonio Rivas Turco, Masters 05, and J.B. Schneider, Masters 05. They co-founded Piccolino, which grew out of a collaboration with students from the Rhode Island School of Design. Piccolino creates toys with a playful style and smart functionality that are used by children and families worldwide. And Ama Sefa Deda, Masters 09. She co-founded One Hen, a nonprofit that inspires students through its programs. One Hen Microfinance for Kids, which introduces them to microfinance and entrepreneurship, and The Good Garden Food Security for Kids, which teaches students about sustainable agriculture. Well over 17,000 students have participated in these programs. Now, there's more Babson entrepreneurship coming around here. Babson entrepreneurs are receiving recognition wherever you turn. So Bloomberg Businessweek again asks its readers to nominate the best entrepreneurs under 25, and this year, 3 Babson startups are among the 25. Fanby, founder of Blank Label, which sells custom clothes online. Sebastian Abondano, whose company My Funky Planet sells toys with virtual counterparts. And Dinesh Wadhwani and Enrico Palmerino, whose company Think Light manufactures energy-efficient lighting. Now, you can clap for them, but that's not what I want you to do. No, because claps are cheap when there's an election campaign. These winners are going to be based on the top vote getters among Bloomberg Businessweek's readers. And you have until October 20th for the one you think is the most promising. So after dinner, just Google America's Best Young Entrepreneurs 2011 vote. Read about the finalists and their companies, and I know that you will want to vote, as I have, and I used to say multiple times, but you can no longer do that, for these incredible Babson entrepreneurs. Our passion for Babson is based on making it possible for today's and tomorrow's students to do what the outstanding alumni we're honoring tonight have accomplished. Whether they're in the corporate realm, whether they're in the social realm, or whether they're promoting some idea that no one else has ever pursued before, our alumni will keep creating something new, and all of us will take great pride in their extraordinary accomplishments. This afternoon, when I gave the State of the School, I talked about the importance of getting to the point where we can now say, I am a Babson entrepreneur, no matter what you study here, no matter what courses you took here, no matter what you did it under the umbrella of entrepreneurial thought and action that infuses all aspects of this curriculum. And that means at the core that you are committed to creating economic and social value in so many different ways everywhere. Saying, I am a Babson entrepreneur will be something incredibly unique and incredibly meaningful as we continue to differentiate ourselves as the only school that does what we do. Again, thank you all for being with us tonight. Enjoy your dinner, and then we'll get back after dinner with the rest of tonight's program. Congratulations to all.
I'm glad there's a lot of good conversation going on. I'm Candida Brush. I'm the chair of the Entrepreneurship Division and also director of the Arthur M. Blank Center, and I'm really happy to be your mistress of ceremonies. You've heard the words entrepreneurial thought and action a lot during recent months, or maybe even today several times, right? Yeah? And so a significant part of entrepreneurial thought and action is the concept of acceleration. Accelerating entrepreneurship around the world, accelerating learning of students and the development of ventures, and accelerating all types of entrepreneurial ventures. In fact, President Schlesinger just talked about our rising stars who are accelerating the growth of their ventures. So how do we accelerate entrepreneurship? Well, besides offering 102 classes in entrepreneurship, more than any school in the entire world, and having more than 50 faculty who teach entrepreneurship, last year they published 4 books, 16 cases, and 50 articles in entrepreneurship. And last year, we also launched something called our Babson Venture Accelerator. The Venture Accelerator is available to all students at Babson pursuing any form of entrepreneurship, whether it's family, corporate, social, franchising, technology, licensing, or even a de novo startup. The Venture Accelerator is leveled, so there's 3 levels. If you imagine a pyramid, it's explore, pursue, launch, and grow. And students will receive resources, mentoring, and space, depending upon the level of development of their venture. And right now we have more than 200 students in our Venture Accelerator. We have 5 mentors, several peer MBA mentors, and we also have an entrepreneur in residence. Some of you may have watched Shark Tank, and so Damon John is one of the celebrity mentors to our Accelerator students. So we work to accelerate both student learning and the ventures. And we do this using a variety of skills. The skills of entrepreneurial thought and action are both learnable and teachable, and we apply those both in the classroom and in our Venture Accelerator. So the concept of acceleration is very pertinent when we think about the 2 honorees we have tonight. Mir Ibrahim Rahman is co-founder and CEO of Jio TV Network, which is Pakistan's most popular and largest media brand. Rahman has overseen the launch and growth of Jio from a 5-member operation out of a hotel to a 2,500-strong South Asian content producer and broadcaster with 10 channels globally. Jio's mission is to create an enabling platform for thinking and questioning in Pakistan. The New York Times has noted Jio has changed the media landscape of this country. Rahman is a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader from 2011, and he's the youngest member of the Young Presidents Organization in Pakistan, and a founding director of Mir Rahman Foundation, an NGO that raised more than $17 million for the devastating flood beginning in 2011. In addition to his responsibilities at the TV network, Rahman has also started Pakistan's largest record label, as well as Jio Films. Jio Films' second project, Bowl, launched in mid-2011 about women and minority rights, has broken the country's box office record. And the previous record was held by Jio's first film, In the Name of God, a film about the difference between fundamentals and fundamentalism. Please join me in welcoming Mir Ibrahim Rahman to the podium.
Since they've already printed it out, I can confess to you that I think you guys are making a mistake. I am usually responsible to target those who practice public speaking. So I may myself therefore not be too good at it, so please do bear with me. About 15 years ago, I entered your community. It was orientation week, and in fact, it was this very hall. And as the eldest grandson and cousin and brother and son was going to college, my community had come to drop me off and hand me over to you. All my 4 aunts, my 9 cousins, and 5 brothers and sisters, my parents, and my grandmother. The night before the first day of college began, my father had taken me out for a small chit-chat walk while the rest of the troops were in their cars waiting. There he gave me a long list of things to do. Like a typical Babsonian father, he had read the profiles of all the professors. He had read the different classes that were being offered and the clubs available, and given me a target list. He had also recommended certain friends. And obviously, a very high benchmark of grades. And then he added the corollary that there's a certain correlationship with certain type of friends and grades, which turned out to be true. But right at the end, he said, "Oh yes, I almost forgot." He said nonchalantly, "My father left this business, our family business." He said, "My father left this business for me, not for you. Don't come back to Pakistan." As you can imagine, it was a shock of my life, and I guess in this case, shock and awe perhaps worked. But I was devastated. I mean, I was primarily devastated because my late grandfather, I was actually brought up by him. And I spent more time with him than any of his children put together. And the future that I had thought of ever was in the newsroom that I had grown up in, of my grandfathers, who started the largest Urdu newspaper in Pakistan. So that night, I couldn't really sleep. And my roommates, all 3 of them, I think the housing has improved since then, but they encouraged me to distract myself and read. So for the first time, I read the next day's class in advance. In fact, I think I read the entire week's class in advance. The next morning, for the first time in my life, I sat in the front row. And for the first time, on the first question, I raised my hand. There were many firsts here at Babson. But I think the moral of the story was that it was an extremely transformative process for me. And if it had not been for you and your community, I could have spun or spiraled completely out of control. If it had not been for the personal attention that I got from so many of my professors, I would not be standing here today amongst you in this way. At the end of the day, last 10 years have been quite interesting in Pakistan. There is a Chinese curse. The Chinese have a funny way to also give curses. So they say, "May you live in interesting times." So we in Pakistan obviously have been getting a lot of interesting times. When we started, there was only one channel 10 years ago, and now, believe it or not, there are 80 indigenous private channels and voices out there. The industry only employed around 5,000 people and now employs over 200,000. We only produced about 1,000 hours of programming, and now we produce more than 80,000. Yes, there has been significant amounts of entrepreneurship in the media industry in Pakistan. But even more significant has been the entrepreneurship of ideas. I'll give you some examples. So one of our programs is called Shadi Online. Shadi Online means marriage online, and as facetious as it sounds, there is some practicality as well as some real thought into the concept. So in the format, we make sure that there's at least one woman. And it was very shocking first for Pakistan to see a woman also interview her husbands on screen or potential suitors on screen. One of the questions I remember the first participant had asked, and I had produced the show myself. She said, so let me get this straight. You are asking me about what I can cook for your mother, and you're asking me about, if I can wear X color and X type of clothes. What is your salary again? And we were all shocked in the control room, as was the rest of the nation. When we started, one of the first things that we had started doing was we had started doing comedy shows on our politicians, and this is very, very new. We don't have Superman, and we don't have Batman, and we don't have as many founding fathers. So unfortunately, the real celebrity values is with our politicians. So when we started making fun of them, it was kind of shocking, and we weren't sure if it would be stomached properly. And I remember we did a poll, and at that poll, 82% people said that they were satisfied with this. But in one of the questions, they said, how come you don't make fun of the main person? And that was being done live, and for the first time, no one knew this, and we entered and we pressed play on the recording of the President of Pakistan. He was making a mock speech for the first time. That ended up getting the highest ratings, but a lot of people were disturbed in Islamabad. But this idea that we can laugh at our leaders got introduced. Len, I think, shared with you a little bit story of the religious debate that we had. Before this, to have a debate on religion would be considered very much taboo. And it would be detrimental, in fact, to religion in the minds and hearts of those who claim to be religion stakeholders in Pakistan. But in this format, we allowed the religious right and the religious left to debate it for the first time. And before, whereas it would be used as a shield to prevent debate, it allowed them an enabling environment to actually go ahead and make change. The campaign was called Zara Soche, means just think. And for every hour on the hour, 3 times an hour, the campaign ran. And it was a very sensitive issue, but there was no bloodshed, there was no violence. And eventually, after 28 years of a law that had been passed by a dictator, without being discussed in Parliament, it finally was discussed. And 11 out of the 13 recommendations that were given were adjusted. And that night alone, around 2,000 women had been released from prison. But the main message was that religion or debate itself is not only good for the sake of debate, but it is good for religion itself. And religious interpretive thought actually was freed that day. Another example was actually not too long ago when the Mumbai Attacks took place in India. Unfortunately, over 250 people lost their lives. And within 2 hours, the main culprit, Ajmal Kasab, who had been caught in Mumbai, was tracked by our reporters in Faridkot, which was about an hour away from Lahore. It was one of the most toughest things that we had to deliberate upon. Should we break this news? And what would be the consequences in our society? Because you have to imagine yourselves right in the middle of the Cold War with Russia, and imagine if a similar circumstance had taken place, what would you do? My team decided to go ahead with it. And the worst that we had thought actually did happen in the beginning. There was people in the parliament who said that we have done act of treason, which is punishable by death, by the way. It made it worse that the Indian parliament started airing Jio's footage, saying that, look, Pakistan's media is saying that Ajmal Kasab is from Pakistan, but the government isn't. And what made it even worse on top, that our competitors started airing that footage from the Indian parliament. But eventually, we ran this campaign. We have this character called Mr. Jeem. He's a small alphabet that begins with G. And we use this character in times of great need and when we are cornered. It's a cartoon character. We must introduce you to it at some point. And he basically said something very interesting. He said, the truth, no matter how bitter, is more powerful than a lie, no matter how sweet. And he kept repeating this for a good month. And we saw some amazing things being introduced in our social discourse. Our ratings actually came back up. And we do this credibility survey where our credibility shot through the roof, and the government of Pakistan were forced to reckon with some of the past and some of the issues that had not been surfaced before then. These are some of the kind of things that have allowed our nation to slowly evolve, and independent media is behind much of that process. Unfortunately, there's some negativity also associated. There's a difference between correlation and causation, but in the hearts and minds of people, sometimes it's not very clear. So with independent media, sometimes you end up showing something negative. And so you get associated that media is only showing something negative. My grandmother defends me the best in this situation. She says, look, if you haven't told your son or grandson to clean your room in 60 years, the first time he will clean his room, he'll end up making more dust. And accidentally, he will knock a lamp or two down. And that's wrong. That should not have happened. But eventually, when the dust settles, it will be a cleaner room. And I think for Pakistan and our role, I hope to see that. Last, I just would like to acknowledge that the spirit behind this campus and this community has been such a big driver between what we are doing and the entrepreneurship of ideas and the entrepreneurship that goes around the world and the good that it does. And it's hard to acknowledge exactly what that secret sauce and recipe is. But for a moment, I think if we were to narrow it down, I would like all the professors in this room to please stand up. All the professors. Professor Spinelli, please. Please stand. For me, if it was not the way you held my hand, if it was not the way, you loved what you were doing and the teachings that you parted with, and in the way you did it, the best way I can come up with is you give yourself away. And I am appreciative of that from the bottom of my heart, and I know so many of my colleagues and my fellow Babsonians are, and I'm really very proud to be associated with this community. Thank you once again for this honor.
Thank you. Those were most inspirational remarks. You did a great job. Thank you so much for your kind thoughts. It was fabulous. So Stephen Spinelli became president of Philadelphia University on September 1st, 2007. And under his leadership, Philadelphia University is implementing a very bold strategic plan to bolster the university's position as a transformative force in professional higher education through an innovative curriculum based on transdisciplinary, active, and real-world learning that's infused with the liberal arts. Here at Babson, many of you know that Steve held a variety of leadership positions. He was our only vice provost for entrepreneurship and global management. He was chair of the entrepreneurship division and director of the Arthur M. Blank Center for Entrepreneurship. As vice provost, he was instrumental in strengthening and growing important initiatives, including the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, or our GEM research project, which is the world's largest collaborative research project studying entrepreneurship. I have to say, on a personal note, he was responsible for inviting me to lunch about 6 years ago, and that led to a lot of lunches, and after all those lunches, I actually ended up working here. So it was nice that Steve is the one that brought me in, so I thank him for that. He's also an entrepreneur. He co-founded Jiffy Lube International and was chairman and CEO of American Oil Change Corporation, helping to pioneer the quick lube industry nationwide and turning Jiffy Lube into the nation's dominant competitor with more than 1,000 service centers. So please join me in welcoming Steve Spinelli back to Babson College.
Let me see if I have got this right. Mir is working on war and peace and social justice, and I changed oil. What most people don't know, though, is I actually met with Mir twice while he was a student here. Clearly, the catalyst for all of this success seems fairly self-evident. Thank you, Professor Brush, and thank you, Babson community. It really is a lot of fun to be home. It's particularly exciting to see some of my old super students like Brett Gordon and Neil Faulkner, the super franchisee. Brett, I often say, is the smartest student I ever had. Neil is probably the brightest franchise mind I've ever seen. Seth Ginsburg, who is just a great kid and a real inspiration for me. And the Ferretti Davis clan over there, friends for a very long time. And the Gembera guys and the Piccolino guys and the incredible entrepreneurs we have here, if they had known that they were so much smarter than me, they would ask Len for a remission of the tuition fees. I am very proud of my history and association with Babson College. For many years, I called Babson the best business school in America. But time and distance has provided me some greater clarity and some objectivity. I'm afraid because he's behind me in this. And maybe a more refined perspective. So I no longer call Babson the best business school in America. This is fun. I now say that Babson is the most important business school in America, maybe the most important business school in the world. There is a big difference in the two. The first proclamation of best almost always provokes an argument, except amongst Babson graduates. The second, the most important statement, usually elicits a debate. Here's my argument. The nature of business schools historically has centered on the allocation of scarce resources, coming from the economics folks. And we, in our wisdom, have interpreted that as management, or, worse yet, administration. Can I teach people to use stuff more efficiently than the next person? Necessary, but not sufficient. And in my opinion, a bit boring. Professor Hornaday, and I don't know if anyone, great, wonderful man, many, many years ago conceived of a course called entrepreneurship, that it might be something different. Jeff Timmons then came and embraced that thought, and through what I think is raw intelligence, an abundance of charisma, and a clarity of mission, built a different kind of business school, or conceived of a different kind of business school, one that focused not only on carving up and managing resources, but on opportunity recognition, leading to growth and value creation. The great Bill Bygrave partnered with Jeff and brought rigorous research, teaching excellence, and unrelenting leadership to create a curriculum, then a program, then a major in entrepreneurship to Babson. On that foundation of these people who I believe are real visionaries, President Glavin and Barefoot and Higdon, and frankly, especially Provost Mike Fetters, executives and an accountant, by the way, made the decision that entrepreneurial behavior would be at the core of the Babson value proposition. Wonderful teachers and scholars like Alan Cohen, Julie Lang, Nan Langwitz, and across the spectrum of different academic disciplines embraced leadership's encouragement And Babson's position in business education, Babson's importance in business education was established. Value creation versus carving up resources. Good managers are important. Entrepreneurship is essential. I usually win the argument, and I like to win. Many colleges have followed the Babson lead. Indeed, we give away a lot of our curriculum and our pedagogy. In the Symposium for Entrepreneurship Educators and in the Babson Entrepreneurial Research Conference, we willingly, happily give it to other schools. But none have really captured who we are, the essence of Babson. I think of this as partly institutional commitment, part an understanding of entrepreneurship beyond the startup, and part willpower and courage. But at the core of Babson's unique advantage in entrepreneurship, I believe, is the embrace of the practitioner, the person on the firing line as a specially equipped teacher. I am not talking about acceptance, I mean equality. Again, with Bill Bygrave and Jeff Timmons leading, Ed Merrim and Les Charm pioneered the concept of the pracademic, with a nod to the medical profession that has always understood the need to engage a clinical environment. Ed and Les inspired Babson's embrace of entrepreneurs as full and important members of the Academy. There's no better example of this embrace than Babson's Craig Benson, by the way, an entrepreneur, a trustee, a teacher, and personally a real pain in the mind. Indeed, Babson has proved entrepreneurial behavior, while informed by the startup, essential to the startup, clearly reaches into every aspect of life. Babson has made, as I think I've shown, many wonderful leadership choices. It's clear to me that our semi-new president, Schlesinger, is a special leader. He has embraced the culture he inherited, and indeed, he has taken us boldly to the proverbial next level. His vision is clear, and it's exciting. A toast to opportunity, to growth, to value creation, and the very special and important Babson College. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Two incredible recipients and two sets of remarks that are truly inspirational. I think Mir and Steve really showcase the essence of Babson graduates and what happens when you leave this place and go out and accomplish something that you care about. So thank you both so much. You were truly, really wonderful reward recipients. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming. It's been a wonderful night. You were a terrific audience, and have a great evening. Thank you.